So Alphatauri just announced that Daniel Ricciardo will be replacing Nyck De Vries for the rest of the 2023 season from Hungary onwards. Can't lie, pretty shocked at the move, even with Alphatauri sitting bottom of the constructors' standings with only 2 points and De Vries being one of only 2 drivers that hasn't scored a single point this season. You'd have assumed they would have given him at least until the end of the season to prove himself, because 10 races in the current worst car on the grid isn't really a fair amount of time to prove your worth. Yeah, he's done plenty of mistakes, but getting the sack after just 10 races is just another show of that Red Bull impatience with their drivers. They dropped their drivers faster than Valtteri Bottas dropped his clutch at Spielberg in 2017. With 8 race wins, 23 podiums and the 2019 Formula 2 Championship to his name, as well as winning the 2020 to 2021 Formula E World Championship, Nyck De Vries has been one of the top prospects for the future in single-seaters for a long while now, and for him to get dropped from his well-deserved F1 seat after just 10 races is pretty much outright ridiculous. Red Bull's habit of dropping underperforming drivers instead of being patient with them isn't something new to the teams. Daniel Kvyat being dropped after 23 races for the Red Bull team, only after getting promoted after 19 races with Toro Rosso. Pierre Gasly being dropped after only 12 races in 2019, only to be replaced with Alex Albon, who would get replaced after 26 races with the flagship team. Clearly a pretty common trend amongst both Red Bull teams. Alphatauri initially very quick to sign up Nyck De Vries after his performance in Monza last year, replacing an unwell Alex Albon at Williams, with a very impressive drive to finish P9 in his first Grand Prix start, picking up a quarter of the team's points for the whole season in a single race. I think it's pretty clear that Alphatauri were expecting him to pick the car up as quickly as he did with the Williams last year, but even after his poor start, surely getting the sack from the worst of the Red Bull teams this early is just far too quick. I'd even potentially argue that, like for like, Sergio Perez is currently performing worse in the Red Bull than De Vries was in the Alphatauri. Not to say that I think Checo deserves to be dropped, because he definitely doesn't, but given the Red Bull history of impatience, I'd be surprised if he makes it past the summer break unless he starts finishing higher up, especially in qualifying sessions. Red Bull teams are without doubt the most cutthroat on the grid, and while yes, it is a harsh statement, it clearly sends out the message that they only want to be associated with the drivers who pull out the best performances consistently. Question is, do I think Nyck deserves a seat in F1? And it's a tough question to answer, because he's more than proven himself in other single-seater disciplines, but is the bar for F1 drivers now so high that we should expect standout performances on a consistent basis from very early on in their careers? That's clearly both Red Bull and Alphatauri's philosophy. Personally, I'd have given him until the end of the season at least, and then evaluated his position based on how the second half of his season would have went, but Red Bull will do, and Red Bull does. Now, on a lighter note, we get to see the return of Daniel Ricciardo to F1, and while he's only been gone for half a season, it still felt like a lifetime since we've seen his smile on the grid, so I'm sure everyone is highly anticipating his return to Hungary and is very excited for it. But with this immediate switch does come a few questions. First thing to discuss, this move is only a loan until the end of the season. Could it be to ready Daniel up for a move to the Red Bull seat next season if Checo's performances don't improve? Initially, I'd have guessed that if Alphatauri were going to do this switch, they would have put Liam Lawson in this seat just after the summer break. So maybe the Ricciardo to that second Red Bull seat does have some solid evidence, or it could just be a simple loan until Alphatauri put Liam Lawson in that seat for 2024 after he finishes this season in Super Formula in Japan. Regardless, Daniel's already tested the Red Bull at Silverstone on the same day Nyck was dropped, and reportedly set a lap time that would have put him on the front row of the grid at the race weekend. Do keep in mind that the track conditions were better for the test than they were in qualifying, and we're not exactly sure what the difference in tyres were for the test. But for Daniel to still put that kind of performance in after 8 months away from the sport is still something very impressive. But just like De Vries' performance in last year, we can't be too quick to judge how he'll perform. After all, he is going to be in what is currently one of the worst cars on the grid. He could come in and massively outperform Yuki Tsunoda, and then what does that do for Yuki's seat in Formula 1? Or could he come in and fall completely short of the mark? Truth is, we'll have to wait until the end of the season to be able to tell. What do you think about this driver move, and what could it mean for both Red Bull teams going forward? Feel free to let me know down below. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Take care.